Put your hand on your head when you have your copy of the book. Great, now everybody take a look at the cover. Raise your hand and tell me what's something you see on the cover. Right, we see a rainbow. Yeah, we see a lot of trees, we see a town, a mountain. What do you see in the title of the book? Right, we see a bunch of different colors in the spaces in the letters. Now, how do the details on the cover relate to the subject of the book? Yeah, all the different colors of the rainbow are represented both in the rainbow itself and in the colors in the title. And we know from talking about color blindness before that a person who is colorblind wouldn't be able to see all of those colors. Now, open up the cover and find the words to know section and put your pointer finger on it. Now you're going to follow along with your pointer finger as we echo the words. Repeat after me. Apps, colorblind, cone cells, gene, retina, rod cells, sensitive, tissue, wavelength. Now there are some words here that you may be familiar with, some you may have never heard before in your life. Let's take a look at these words and tell me, are there any words that you know the definition of, that you think you might know the definition of, that you have some guesses, some prior knowledge that we could try to apply to them? Yeah, if someone is sensitive, that means that their feelings can get hurt really easily. So let's say for sensitive, it's gets hurt easily. Someone tell me about another word. You're right that we do blow our noses with tissues, but that sort of tissue is a thin paper product, and I'll give you a hint that the tissue that is in this book is not made out of paper, but that's a good guess. So I'll put next to tissue, not the paper kind. Something else? Yeah. Right, so waves go up and down. And since we have a compound word with wave and length, it might be how long your wave is, like how long a wave in the ocean is. So we'll say waves go up and down. And then the length of them. What else? Right, you have apps on your phone. Apps can be on a tablet, a computer. They're things that do things on devices. So I'll say on tech devices. Any other thoughts? Right, when someone is blind, it means that there's a certain thing that they can't see, whether that's being blind completely or just being blind to colors. So I'll put for colorblind, I'll underline blind and say, can't see certain things. Anybody else? Right, we have cells in two of our different vocab words. And cells are what living things are made of. Living things are made of cells. Great. So we've got a pretty good idea of what a few of these mean, and we've got a couple that we still don't really know much about. So now, you're all going to get 2 sheets. You're going to get the Color Blindness vocab word map, and you're going to get a list of the definitions of these words. So let's get student volunteers to pass both those out. And once you have your copy of the word map and your copy of the definitions, put your hand on your head. Great, so how this is going to work is every one of these vocab words is going to go into one of these 4 boxes. First, you have to figure out whether each of the words is a noun or an adjective. You have to figure out what part of speech it is. If it's a noun, it'll go in one of the top 2 boxes. If it's an adjective, it'll go into one of the bottom 2 boxes. We also have categories for inside and outside the body. So if the word is something that's inside the body or describes something that's inside the body, it'll go in this first column. If it describes something that's outside the body or is outside the body, it'll go in the second column. So I'll demonstrate with the word apps. Let's say I'm trying to place apps on our map. I know that's either a noun or an adjective, so I'll keep that in mind as I read the definition. And the definition is computer programs or applications designed for mobile electronic devices, such as cell phones. I've used a cell phone app before, as we talked about before. An app is a thing on a phone, and apps is the plural of app. And it seems from the definition that computer program and application are synonyms for app. So app is a noun because it's a thing, and it's outside the human body because it's on a computer. That means I'll write it here. So go through the definitions, follow that same process that I just showed you, and figure out which of these boxes to put each of the vocab words in. And I'll walk around if you need help. I do the sheet. I take a water break. All right, I see that most people are done, so let's bring our attention back up here and let's review. So I'll ask you to raise your hand whether you think a certain word is a noun or an adjective, etc. Raise your hand if you think colorblind is a noun. Raise your hand if you think colorblind is an adjective. Right, it is an adjective. Now raise your hand if you think colorblind refers to something inside the body. Raise your hand if you think it describes something outside the body. Right, it describes something that's inside the body. Colorblindness is a trait that's in the person's eyes. And we go through the rest of the examples like that. So I noticed that a lot of people got that tissue is inside the body, but not everybody got that tissue is a noun. Can somebody raise their hand to tell me how they knew from the definition that tissue is a noun inside the body? Good, yeah. The definition for tissue starts with the word material. And material in this case is used as a noun. So when a definition starts with a noun, usually that means that the word it's defining is a type of that noun. And we know that it's made up of cells from the definition. We know that cells are inside living organisms. So that's how we know that tissue is a noun inside the body. Can someone raise their hand to give me an example of a tissue? Right, arm muscles. The muscles inside of our arms are made of tissue. Can someone give me another example of tissue? Right, our collarbones. All of our bones are also tissue, even though we may not think of them at first because tissue, we think of something soft. We think of tissues, then we think of muscles, but bones are also a type of tissue. Can someone give me an example of something that is not tissue? Right, a rock. A rock is not inside of a living thing, so it's not a tissue. Now, do animals have tissue inside of them? Yes, animals also have tissue inside of them. They're made of cells just like we are. Do we have any other questions or words we had a hard time with? Right, the word consecutive in wavelength. Can someone raise their hand to tell me what consecutive means? Yeah, one right after the other. So if we look at a wave, we'll have peaks and valleys like this. So in the definition of a wave, it's two consecutive high or low points. So these two high points would be one right after the other. They'd be consecutive. So then the wavelength is the distance between the high points that are one right after the other. Yeah. That's a good question. So the question he asked is, are rod cells really shaped like rods? And are cone cells really shaped like cones? So that is a great question to write on the back of your word map. So as we're reading, we can look for those answers to help us understand the vocab better. So if you have any other questions about our vocab words, jot them down on the back of your sheet now. And then as you're reading, you can look for the answers. And as you're jotting those down, we're going to have a couple volunteers pass out copies of our next sheet, the author's purpose sheet.